where do we go next? Like,
Well,
is there any way? I mean, I actually view it as highly demotivating that in essence, every new theory is dead on arrival because of the number of things. I mean, can we agree that physics has gotten incredibly difficult?
it has. It's difficult by virtue of being so successful. I mean,
So you can smell that we're almost at the end, at least of this chapter. And we've exhausted everything that we know that has worked previously, which is like to vary the assumptions a little bit on every, and that's been spectacularly successful. And now it doesn't work anymore, and it hasn't worked for almost 50 years.
Right. It's incredibly frustrating. I think that's why most people are wise to stay the hell away from it. And I think a lot of the smarter minds are going into machine learning or even biophysics or just into other fields. And you're okay with or even condensed matter.
How do you feel about that?
I feel like I'm out on an island in the middle of the Pacific watching it unfold from afar while I work on the puzzle myself in my own different way.
You're having fun.
Yeah. That's my prime directive is have fun.
Is to have fun.
Yeah.
And do you think that inducing other people to do this is kind of like maybe the big programs fall apart and we start just becoming individuals trying crazy strategies that probably won't work?
Yeah. I mean, there are undergraduate textbooks and undergraduate courses on string theory.
Yeah.
Okay. And people from undergraduates there, and there's this culture of arrogance saying string theory is the pinnacle of physics.
Right.
And people are coming up to that and they're becoming, and if you're really working on fundamental physics and the whole area of string theory has gotten so large in the amount of research done.
Sure.
That it just takes an enormous amount of intellectual effort to consume it and to get it up to speed to what the current status is of the field. And by the time you're there, you're so invested that, of course, what you want to do is go and continue a postdoc in string theory when you graduate. And there are hundreds of students who are coming up this way. And when they get there, they go to HEP, like I did this morning, and they look at the job.
Being the high energy physics theory section of this thing called the archive, where all the new papers are found every day.
Yeah. And this high energy physics archive also has a postdoc and job posting board. And just for giggles, I went and say, okay, well, how many opportunities does a rising string theorist have now? And I went and looked, and there are all these subfields of physics. The condensed matter is a big party because it's so incredibly vibrant and productive right now. And you go into high energy theory, and okay, there are 30 positions open in North America. Okay, all right. And some of them are open to string theorists. But out of those 30 positions, you go, how many of them actually actively want a string theorist and are looking for a string theorist? There's one. One, Eric. So you have these hundreds of people groomed up saying string theory is the pinnacle of what you can be studying, and there's nowhere for them to go.
Well, but
because the field is dying.
Well, because it was a baby boomer phenomenon. We treated it as if it was an intellectual phenomenon, but it was actually this weird generational phenomena that this took hold. There's this very weird feature of 1951 where Frank Wilczek and Ed Witten, two great physicists born in the same year. Wilczek is effectively like the last guy to make the train for real physics.
Yeah. He's an amazing guy, though.
And then Witten, born later that year, probably more powerful than anyone else alive in terms of his mental abilities, hasn't had a trip to Stockholm because he hasn't been able to make contact with the physical world. Yeah. And almost certainly in any era that wasn't this one, this guy would have been to Stockholm once or more.
Yeah. And in my mind, it's a cultural problem. We're stuck in this culture of particle physics where you have everybody in the same community studying the same popular direction in full force as if there was lots of data coming in supporting that, and there's not. So what it is they're going full bore, full self-supporting force along direction that in my mind just doesn't describe our universe. And what we need is an exploratory phase with physicists, with graduate students coming up and picking up stuff that they think is interesting and following that direction on their own, branching away from the main herd. And by having more explorers going in different directions, you're more likely to find something good. And I guess my hope is that, some graduate student will have listened through this incredibly long and detailed podcast and go look at stuff and say, well, that's kind of interesting. Maybe I want to learn more about that.
Do you have any ideas? So the Pacific Science Institute, is there any way that our listeners can support it?
Yeah.
Are you a nonprofit?
I'm a 501c3 nonprofit. I'd be very happy to take donations and put those donations to use, supporting scientists.
To diversify. Okay.
Yeah. And these aren't just, it's not just supporting physicists. The idea is that, as you said, science has supported our economy to an incredible degree. And I don't think scientists have been sufficiently personally rewarded for that. So basically what I want to do is, give them a nice place to hang out in Maui, enjoy the environment, and work and think on whatever they want undirected while they do it.
So it's a place to fight groupthink effectively within the field.
While still having community support. And the problem is I have very limited resources right now. I'm basically running this out of my house.
Right.
I have a big piece of land. I have dreams for what I want to build on it.
I've been there, and it's incredibly generous that people can hang out and just actually fulfill the promise of dreaming about our world and trying things that they wouldn't feel comfortable trying under the watchful eyes of a departmental chairman who's telling them what they need do to get tenure or to win grants. Do you have any sense of what we should be directing people to do if they're in a position to change the culture of the field? I always want to think, we still have a few old great people that everybody looks up to, and they refuse to say something really provocative. Like, here's the thing that I dream about. We get all of the negative results. They're incredibly demotivating. Allow your young people to violate several of them without being string theorists, and then insist that they try to pay that back once they've been exploring a theory that in a previous era would have been dead on arrival. Because somewhere we have to go backwards to go forwards. We have to question something that is rock solid in all of our minds, but isn't actually right.
Yeah, this is totally right. And this sort of cultural inertia that's holding things back it's in biology, it's in computer science, it's in all fields of science. So I would say it's almost the best thing to do just to find people who are really freaking smart and want to work on stuff on their own, and give them money and support and let them do it.
I'm on record as saying that we have too much oversight, too much transparency, and too much accountability. It's strangling us.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. It's absolutely true.
Well, Garrett, I really appreciate you sitting down. It's a hell of an experiment to just even try to have conversations about, what might be the path towards final theories of everything.
And I'm actually really worried that we hurt most of your listeners.
Well, but I'll
do that.
If we use this at all, I'll try to say something at the beginning of the program to try to say what it is that people are listening to. So they'll have an idea. They're not just going to stumble in on a podcast and hear people talking about bosons, fermions, E8 quantization and have no idea what's going on. The fact is, very few people are invested in this like this, but this is the fabric of reality ultimately, and a question about how we go about trying to probe whatever's next.
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I think it's the most significant and intricate and difficult puzzle there is right now for anybody to tackle and to immerse themselves in. And I also think it's potentially incredibly rewarding, but it's also one of the hardest things you can do.
It's probably the hardest thing, and it's never been harder.
Yeah. It's almost as hard as learning to surf.